Welcome back to part 2 of my chat with Trent Robinson from the Flight Training Australia podcast. If you missed part 1, I highly recommend going back and giving it a listen. In this episode, we continue our deep dive into Trent's journey, exploring even more insights and experiences. So let's jump back in.
Regardless if it's integrated or not integrated, it's been in a very sort of safe, supervised environment. You need time to go and consolidate that and be challenged, be faced with some things that haven't come up before, maybe make a couple of little mistakes and go, yeah, right, you got to build on all that. And that's what experience is all about.
Welcome aboard the HiflyMedia podcast, dedicated to sharing the stories and experiences of the amazing people who make aviation happen. From pilots like me to engineers, air traffic controllers and others, I'll explore their personal journeys, the challenges they've faced and the triumphs they've achieved. My name is Damien, and I'll be your host. Whether you're a seasoned aviation enthusiast or new to the field, I invite you to join me as we take off on this journey of discovery, uncovering the people and passion behind aviation, one story at a time.
If I can just have a bit of influence on that and just help people's journeys throughout aviation, ultimately, just to help them make good decisions, well-informed decisions, that's really what I'm about now, and just to help people, whether they fly with me or not, I don't care. As long as they get looked after, they have a great time, great experience and love aviation, then that's a win for me.
Yeah. And you touched on something before, Trent, that Paul Strike also talked about, and that is the quality of the instructor. So, as far as, let's say I want to go and become an instructor and I go and do my instructor rating. At the end of the day, yes, I could have a ticket that says I can be an instructor, but it doesn't mean I'm a good instructor. And so he's trying to, in his engagements with, be it pilots or in all of his training aspects, is trying to bring in that grassroots, pure flight-related, good instruction rather than just theory by the book. This is how you do it.
100%, yeah. Look, when I started an instructor course, and again, the term instructor course has changed. It used to be grade 3. Now it could be any of these training endorsements that are available to you.
Right.
But always started off with, at the end of the day, your student will learn despite you. And what that means is just by sitting in the cockpit, watching aviation happen, they will learn something. But you have the power and ability to speed up that process and value add by how you go about your lesson preparation, about your own performance, your own standards, your own flying skills. If you're going to show me how to do a flapless landing and take 3 go-arounds before you get it right, how's that going to look? We can't be doing that. If you're going to, I could be 12 months, 24 months later, I jump in a 172 for the first time and do a forced landing. I need to nail it because it's paying me to, so that's what we need to do. And the more we can, if we can get someone like myself that's had a great sort of a parallel run of instructing and charter, or go out into charter and then come back, that's ultimately what we need. In an ideal world, an instructor would go get charter experience and then come back and bring that back into the flight training scene. But it's not set up that way, and I know why, and it's a difficult nut to crack, and I don't know how we're going to do that one, apart from flight schools that are charter companies or have access with another company that can do a bit of a share resources sort of process where the instructors can get and do that professional development, because they recognise that that's important. And yes, people will come and go, and that cycle will never end, but it's for the betterment of industry, I think, that we do that sort of thing.
Oh, I totally agree. I recall my CFI, when I was getting to the end of my commercial and approaching that flight test, and me saying to him, what do you think I should do? Because I was considering doing an instructor rating at the time. And he said to me, before you even step in this place to do your instructor rating, go get 300 hours out there doing something else. Don't come in. You'll be that much of a better instructor if you do that.
Yeah.
And it was hard. It was hard to hear.
Yeah, it is. Look, I approach things a similar way. Someone say, I'm ready for my grade 1 because, the regs say I need 750 hours and I've got them. I go, yeah, okay, well, rather than say, no, go away, come back, because I know not, I'll go, okay, well, let's start the process.
Yeah.
And that's, in a way, that's what I love about the whole Part 61 syllabus, that if it's done correctly, it is a competency-based outcome for the majority of it. So at the end of the day, if you reckon you can do it, that's fine. And if you've got a heap of instructing background and a lot of IFR experience, if I did your instrument rating training endorsement, I wouldn't expect it to take too long. Whereas someone that's more junior, we're going to do more. And the system allows that flexibility. As long as it's done properly, though. I know there's places that have done night training endorsements and it's been all focused on the circuit. And there's been no navigation, there's been no human factors, there's been no GPS work and autopilots and all these other bits and pieces, and that's just ridiculous. And it's also contravention of the MOS or the manual standards, So it is crucial that we've got good experienced people teaching pilots, but also good experienced people teaching instructors to bring them up through the ranks and have that mentorship. I remember when I could have got grade 1, but I was lucky at the Aero Club we had 35, 40 instructors around and a lot of good quality grade 1s. And I go, I'm not that I was expecting to be at their standard because obviously they're years ahead of me, but I could see what it meant to be a grade 1 or a grade 2. And I wasn't ready for that yet. So I held off, and that, I think I'd give myself credit for that, having that maturity to do that because, some people say, well, that's a pay rise. But to me, it meant more than that. And I guess that's just, that integrity and process of making sure that I was always giving my best to my students and trying to develop myself as well.
Yeah. That's very commendable because most people would just go for the pay rise rather than think about, and as Paul put it.
We're only human, I get it.
Well, that's true. Paul put it to me that, it's looking at the output or the product at the end of creating that instructor or creating that student or helping that person develop those skills is making sure that product at the end is the best that it can be, the safest that it can be. And so you've obviously got that same ethos.
Yeah. It goes through the charter pilots as well that, I could fly the twin now. Yeah, but you haven't even, barely had your instrument rating. You haven't got a wet season under your belt. How are you going to actually be in that role? So, because at the end of the day, you're going to be in the hot seat and you're going to have to deal with it. So there's time and place. And you've got to learn somewhere, but making sure that you're doing that part of the job well first before you then try and build on it rather than trying to learn everything at the same time.
So with this change in direction for you, or whatever we want to call it, from working for a flying school that had an AOC to now under this Part 141 regulation and you being your own flight school, what challenges or concerns did you have in that, and what challenges or concerns do you see in the future for this path that you're currently on? Yeah,
look, again, I'm by myself. I don't have to sort of worry about anybody else. It's really just as long as the work's going to be there. And as I indicated before, the territory runs on GA, so I don't think I could have parked myself in a better place. There's not a lot of commercial training that goes on up here. Everyone, it's either sort of RPL, PPL, or everything beyond commercial training because everyone's already somewhere else.
Yeah.
But the process of really trying to provide that training and access. We're operating at a military base here at Darwin. ATC is fantastic, but it's not a training aerodrome, so sometimes there could be issues there. But ultimately, it's really just trying to maintain current practices and keep up with things, with the changes in the MOS, the regs, and things that are happening. I did a CASA examiner PDP or proficiency development program online a while ago, and there was a range of examiners from all different backgrounds, from fixed wing to rotary, from 20, 30 years ago to more recent, and trying to keep up with the current practices, rules, regulations, processes and stuff is probably one of the hardest things. And that in a way is, again, really why I brought the podcast around as well, to try and communicate those things. And by having this forum, that puts a responsibility on me as well to ensure that what I'm saying is correct and accurate. It's not just my opinion or my interpretation. A number of times I hear people go, well, that's not how I read it. I go, well, you're reading it in a way that's, it's almost confirmation bias to try and lead it the way you want to say it. It's very black and white and it's very obvious. There are certainly some areas there that are a bit confusing and take a few reads to get it down. You've got to read it like a lawyer because ultimately that's what all the regs are for, to regulator.
Yep.
But just, standardization. I've had instructors, 30, 40 instructors under my lead. People are going to do things their own way. It's just human nature. But SOPs and that sort of stuff are so important in an operation. There's certain scope for flexibility in the way things are done. And you just talk to any first officer, just about every captain they fly with will have their way of wanting things done.
Right.
And as a pilot, you've got to learn to adapt to all that. If you want to try and do it the same way all the way every time, use the same checklist or the same process in every single airplane, you can't do that.
Yeah.
So they're the things that I think are challenges for me to find ways to get across to others and then help them with that process and get that Australian flavor on the podcast and, the YouTube videos that I'm very slowly getting at, but I'm starting to really push a lot harder now because there's so much American data out there and information, but not a lot on the Australian thing, and it confuses things. So just trying to, inform industry and people the best way I can, ultimately is what I'm about now.
I love it. I love it. And I love, like I said earlier on in the podcast, and like, you mentioned also, of others have said the same thing. When I listen to Flight Training Australia podcasts, it's like I'm sitting with my instructor and I'm being briefed or debriefed or educated one way or another. So incredibly insightful. If you're a pilot and you're listening to this podcast, like I said, you need to go and listen to Flight Training Australia. Think of mine like a little bit of side entertainment, and think of Trent's podcast as that's the information you need in order to be a better pilot. Mine's all nice flight stories. Yours is information that's going to be very helpful. So go check out Flight Training Australia. You mentioned your YouTube channel. I can't remember if it was on your YouTube channel or your videos, and I think it was through Facebook that I saw them. It could have been through Instagram.
Yeah, probably Instagram then, yeah.
Yeah. I noticed that in one of your recent ones, you were poking at the front of a mallard.
Yes. Yeah, well, I guess that's kind of, again, the exposure and experience I've had in the past that's led to this opportunity. So Paspali Pearls up here in Darwin operate 3 Grumman mallards, which have been converted from radial to turbine. And so they're essentially the Australian turbine variant, and they're the only 3 in the world. And I have had the fortune of instructing some of the guys up here to do their instructor training,
right?
To build the instructor training team for check and training. And obviously having only 3 in the world and of the nature of the operation, it's not an easy replacement for someone when they come and go. Having said that, there's been very little movement over the last 4 or 5 years, which is not surprising given the uniqueness and nature of the flying. So I did their instructor training, instructor training for the examiner. Unfortunately, the previous head of operations had a medical issue that had to mean he can't fly at the moment, and hopefully he'll be back soon. But in the meantime, I had to retrain the previous examiner from years ago. He's sort of been brought back into the fray. And so as part of the redundancy process, they looked at options to either try and get someone within their examiner rating, but the process for that is quite lengthy. The alternative was, is there someone outside industry that we can bring in to give them the type rating on the mallard so that then we can continue doing what we need to do? And that lucky person was me. So the process was that Dan Bolton, one of the pilots up here, and he's got that Mallard Guide podcast.
Yep.
He has got, as I mentioned, Ben's got the Buccaneer there. So we thought, look, I've always wanted to do my floating hull. There's no job opportunity at the end of it or anything else. I just thought, little gift to myself that I thought it was an opportunity to do it cheaply with Dan and work on his instructor skills at the same time. And then, over the course of a year, it ended up being that, all right, Trent, we're going to bring you in and do the Mallard type rating. And so we thought, all right, Dan, we've got to finish off this Buccaneer endorsement pretty quick. And then got into the Mallard. So just an amazing aeroplane, mixing my passion for older aircraft. I've always loved flying boats, but it's just never been a practical reason to do it.
Yeah.
And the ocean and, the water, I just love the water and snorkeling, that sort of stuff. So here I am, land at stunning places like Curie Bay and Osborne Islands, and that opened the back door and there's sharks and turtles swimming around. And it's just, it's just another world and just such an honor and a privilege. And crawling through the front hatch. It's not as glamorous as it looks. I'm trying to record a video of me sneaking back down through and you're contorting yourself to shut the hatch, and then you got to climb through under the dash, try and get back into your seat. So it's not for the faint-hearted, but good yoga practice.
Looks good when you're out. Looks real good.
Oh, it's amazing. You're just sitting there with these beautiful big turbine engines spinning away 2 meters behind you. And then just lean forward and let the rope go, and then you float backwards, fire them up, and off you go. It's brilliant. So what I like in flying boat and flight plane experience, I bring my instructional examining experience back. So that now allows me to, be pilot in command when I need to do those instructor and instrument flight tests for the guys when their checks come around. I'm not in a training captain capacity otherwise because, I'm still in line training myself.
Mm-hmm.
But PAS have allowed me to continue to do line training, eventually be checked to line when the time comes, but just as a fill-in pilot. So it'll take a while because I'm not flying, weekly or staff, but it'll happen. So that's, again, a challenge in itself to fly a aeroplane once a month. I'm trying to remember how all these things happen, but it's an awesome opportunity.
It's an incredible opportunity. For those who haven't heard episode 12, go and have a listen to it. That's when I had a chat with Dan Bolton. His podcast is On the Step. And so he talks a lot about the aircraft that Trent's just been talking about, the Grumman Mallard. And it's just majestic. To me, that aircraft is majestic. And so when I saw, because obviously I'd been following you and I'd been following Dan, and then I'm like, hang on, Trent's in the Mallard, what's going on here? So it's nice to hear that what's happening in the background. And
yeah, no, it is. And like I said, I'll let Dan's talked all about it and 100% listen to that. And I interview him in my episode 50 as well, talking about it, but on a different spin. It's just credits to, Pasquale for keeping those aircraft going and the team. I've got to say, I've worked at a lot of different organisations and just the warmth and feeling so welcome at Pasquale has just been amazing. Just everyone's learnt my name, engineering, operations, and
wow,
that's just great. And we're just it's just a really great fun team of people, and just a real privilege to be involved.
Totally, milk that for all that you can.
Yeah, no. It's,
and you didn't even fly on the Whit Sundays, and you're at Pasquale.
No Whit Sundays, no Horry Falls, but again, I do work with the guys at Horizontal Falls up in Broome there.
Yeah.
So there is an opportunity to do my float plane endorsement. So just for those who don't know, the floating hull is essentially like a boat with wings. So you land on the belly and then float planes the pylons and the pods underneath.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's what the caravans obviously have. So there might be an opportunity to do that down the track. But again, I'm very mindful of my experience and process. So there'll be line training to deal with that as well. But I'll get this sorted first and just get some time under my belt before I just go and jump in. Again, it's easy to have big eyes open and go, yes, I want to do this and do that. But again, at the same time, I want to keep being able to do it and not do something stupid and get ahead of myself. So there's plenty of time.
Yeah, that's very wise. Did you fly caravans much?
So I got about 45 hours in the caravan and doing a little bit now, doing instructing, doing design feature training and some IPCs and that sort of stuff. Did an endorsement for someone in Broome, but not flying line training as much as I wanted to. Again, it was an opportunity that I did the endorsement for, and then that opportunity fell through.
Right.
Through contractual changes. Same sort of thing happened with the Conquest when I did my endorsement in that. It was all ready to go, and then lost contracts and just didn't have the surplus work for me as an outsider to sort of justify it. Fell to the timers here.
I actually think I jumped into the caravan too soon, in my opinion, because I just completed my commercial, and then in order to fly at Skydive Australia, you had to have an instrument rating, and I went and did a multi. The guy, the head of operations, actually said, just go and get a single in the Cessna, keep it simple. You're only going to be flying a single. But no, I wanted to go and do a multi, so I went and did the multi, and then for me, I think it was too much all in one hit, to go commercial into turbine, into not even flying really from A to B because you're doing jump pilot operations. It's fairly full on. Yeah, I think I jumped into it too early. I think I should have gone and done the 182, 206, 210. I should have done that first.
It changes the opportunities that are around, but it's like I say, if you think about everything you learn in a commercial license and 150 hours, 200 hours of flying, a lot of it has still been, regardless if it's integrated or not integrated, it's been in a very sort of safe, supervised environment. You need time to go and consolidate that and be challenged, be faced with some things that haven't come up before, maybe make a couple of little mistakes and go, yeah, right, you got to build on all that. And that's what experience is all about, and having a wide range of experience. So it's easy to want this, and especially now, like there's pilots up here now that seeing people move on quickly and getting into the airlines early and this and that, the other, that's like the last couple of years has just been crazy since COVID. But at the same time, there's those that have jumped in and come back out the other side and not making it through. It's generally because they just haven't had the experience, exposure, the confidence to be able to cope. And that's terrible. And I don't want to see that happen because that can just, crush you. The overall process of just taking time, enjoying the journey and just take every experience that comes your way as golden. And it might not seem like much, but it all builds to making you the pilot that you are.
Yeah. Yes. A young fellow by the name of Josh Villani talked about that. In fact, a few of the guests that I've had on the podcast have talked about that, of not necessarily, even in talking to Alex most recently, not just running off to the airlines, which he was planning to do when he went over to England and did the ATPL over there. Had he done that, he would have missed all of these other experiences, the whole Whitsunday, everything.
Oh, look, the things that I've done, just would never have happened if I did that. Speaking to a few WellCamp graduates of the Qantas Cadetship program and stuff that didn't make it through straight out, that have just been so grateful for the GA time that they've had because they would have missed it. They wouldn't have seen those views and the craziness that goes on sometimes with the sort of jobs you get and meet the people that you meet. So it's definitely something that you don't get paid that well, sure, but this is where memories are made for sure. It's definitely one of those things that you don't want to skip if you can or help it.
Okay, so if it's okay with you, I'm going to hit you with a few rapid-fire questions that I ask everyone.
Sure.
Can you tell us about a memorable experience you've had flying a particular aircraft and what made it special to you?
Yeah, well, look, obviously the Mallard's one, but aside from that, I was going back to the fighter combat days I said about the Rebel Air Race. I was very fortunate that I got to fly PC-9.
No way.
I went up with the roulettes. So that week, actually, it was an amazing week. There was 2 separate days. So it was sort of 2 experiences, but we'll call it the week. So the roulettes were over for the Rebel Air Race, which was happening at Perth over the Swan River.
Yeah.
And we did there was a bit of a joint Rebel Air Race RAF promotion sort of thing going on because unbeknownst to everyone at the time, but this was the year Matt Hall was going into join the air race the year after in 2009.
Right.
So this was in October. So we had the roulettes came over. So I mentioned earlier I was doing videography and photography and stuff. So I had the fortunate opportunity to jump in with roulette number 4, and we went out over Rottnest Island and did a bunch of sequences, and then I became the camera ship and we moved around a couple of the aircraft doing the mirror formation and other things, getting some shots. And then we flew into the Swan River and did half the routine there just so the guys could get the lay of the land. And for those in Perth that have the Australia Day air display and things we've had, it's been very successful and built over years. Werner Baldwin and the team have built that up until unfortunately we had the actual Mallard crash a couple of years ago that sort of stopped everything. And now it's gradually just rebuilding back up again. But yeah, flew in there. We called it the air show in the bucket just because it's so tight between the North Shore and the South Perth foreshores there, and then east and west with the Narrows Bridge. And that was just an incredible thing. And then once we finished that display, I got to fly in formation with the roulettes on the way back out down the coast and then back into Jandakot before I handed back over. So that was just
So hang phenomenal. On, you were at the controls?
Yep.
Oh my goodness.
We had a go. So that was amazing. So I was seeing number 4 with 5 and 6 either side of me as well.
Oh my goodness.
That was just mind blowing. And still speak to the pilot every now and then that we on Facebook and that was fantastic. And then 2 days later was the sort of I think it was 2 days later, maybe it was 2 days earlier, but either way, we flew up to Pearce Air Force Base, and that's where we did the cross promotion with Matt Hall. Who, Kirby Chambliss was one of the American pilots in these Edge 540. We were in the Nanchang and we took up the R-44 helicopter as well, flew up to Pearce Air Force Base, which is just north of Perth there. And unfortunately, it was a little bit overcast and cloudy, but they did the big press junket on the ground, and then we had the F-18 join us on the way back down the coast to do an area. Wow. Matt was in the back and he was flown because I think he'd technically left the Air Force by that point. And he was flown by a pilot or Jacko or Andrew Jackson. So Andrew was actually the first F-35 RAF pilot to get checked out in the aircraft and do all that. Amazing bloke. And they had the F-18 and what they call the goofy tank configuration. So they had the center fuel tank and the right tank. They didn't have time to take them off or something. But I was in the back of the Nanchang doing photos. So I had an F-18 and Kirby Chambliss and us in this line of stern formation. And, it's just something I'll never forget. And because of the overcastness and the moisture in the air, the F-18 obviously had a high alpha angle attack, and the vapor of the ectoplasm, well, it's not ectoplasm, I don't think of that at low level, but the condensation coming off the wings and the streams was just stunning.
Unbelievable.
And there's a photo or two of that on my Patreon and Instagram, I think somewhere there. I'll probably have to post another one when this comes out. But that was just a phenomenal week.
Did you get a selfie in the plane?
Yes, I've got a fantastic one going out with the Edge, us, and the helicopter, and then the Red Bull chopper was taking a photo of the three of us, which is that was heading up, and then coming back I was a bit busy. But no, I've got a great shot with the guys there, and it was just an amazing thing, And then the F-18 was running out of fuel, so that started heading off, and then I just remember heading back to Jandakot, and I was looking at the chopper because the chopper, Jurgis, I think he's saying, is just the skids just off our wingtip. Like he could fly that thing like nothing else.
Far
and I could this aeroplane going, whoa, and I'd turn around and Kirby's just looking at me, and I look back at the helicopter and go, whoa, and I turn around and what's he like revving the pitch or something? I'm like, what is he doing? And then I sat there and watched him, and he's just sitting there doing snap rolls. Snap rolls it to the right, back completely wings level, information. That's why I didn't detect it the first time. I thought, you bugger. Oh, God, he could fly that plane. Yeah. I remember flying on downwind, joining, and he was just barreling in, and he just punched it, broke right. I was like, there's no way he's going to pull up, and he's just completely cross-controlled, pulls up over the threshold, drops it off the first taxiway. I thought, wow, that is cool.
He knows his machine.
So, look, that would have to be the highlight. It was just an amazing week. That was just literally chance of a lifetime stuff. So
that's incredible. Chance of a lifetime. I was thinking surely you were pinching yourself on the way back to make sure you weren't actually dreaming.
Oh, it was. My wife was very dark at me for a little while there.
Someone had to do it, Trent.
That's right. Yeah, it took one for the team.
Trent, what's one of your most fear-filled flight experiences?
Fear-filled. Look, I commented this to students at the time that as an instructor, and I go, look, that probably should have scared me a lot more than it did. I won't say that I've seen everything, but I've had a fair bit thrown at me, and fairly calmly just grab the controls, fix it all up, and they're like, you do that. But look, and again, I think this is a good message for everyone flying up here as well, that if anything, I'd say, the storms and the wet seas and the weather, there's a lot of things I feel on an airplane you can generally control, short of, catastrophic failures and that, but the weather is just one of those things that can catch you out so quickly. And I think I've got a very healthy respect for it. And it's something that I'm very passionate about in making sure that pilots come up here do. And I did an episode on it a few episodes ago where we were doing an IFR flight, and we had the storm there, and we didn't have to be there. We could have gone to the west and it was all clear, but it just, again, reminded me of how quickly things can go pear-shaped if we just start doing what the controllers say without using common sense and understanding that a controller will typically just have a radar screen and they're dealing with traffic, and that's what they're doing. But they don't have the overlays. Like, we have more information on Oz runways and Avplan with the overlay of the weather radar over our charts than they do. They've just got a little Bureau of Met thing, but we can see where it is in relation to our flight path more.
Yep.
And that was the most nervous I've felt in a while, because we didn't have actual weather radar. It was just us and our phones, just like everyone else up here. I was incredibly fortunate that I learned the wet season in the King Air, had all the fruit, full radar, and then nothing beats weather radar as far as being able to get an accurate, proper picture of where it all is. We've got that in the Mallard as well. Doesn't have autopilot, but it's got full radar, and you just need that really when you're doing that. So I think that's one of the things that just, even someone with me at my experience level, you can still be getting nervous, and it's a completely normal, natural thing. And that means it's your fight or flight instincts and all those things are there and real, and you listen to them.
Yeah. And
it doesn't matter what the boss wants or doesn't want anything else wants. You do what is safe. And okay, if you overreact, you're still alive.
Yeah.
It's good. Might have cost a little bit more to get it back to the the destination airport or whatever else, but, you're still there. It's just that pressure of, young people making bad decisions because of commercial pressures. If anything, that's probably what fears me with fear more. And that's part of my role now is just I want to try and, again, not saying that I've got all the answers or I'm anyone special, but just I want to try and help anyone that needs it and wants to listen and make sure that they're all safe.
Well, you've got experience, Trent, and you've got a lot of it, and very specific experience up there in the top end. So, I'd argue that and say you are an expert and you are someone special when it comes to experience and knowledge in the top end, and also couple that with training, the amount of training and flight training and instructing you've done over the decades.
Yeah, thank you.
If you were given an expense-free opportunity to be endorsed on any airframe, which would it be and why?
The Corsair.
Corsair?
F4U Corsair. Yeah. I'd take a 51 as a close second. There's just so many amazing aircraft, but this is, I think, with the Mallard as well. That's, excuse the pun, this is what floats my boat the most. I love the older aircraft.
Yep.
I love the technology and the modern airplanes and how they fly and that, but I just love that old stuff. So I'd dearly love to go for a ride in a Mustang or Corsair one day, if anyone's listening.
Matt,
but that would definitely
take him for a ride.
Yes, I'll swap you a photo of you on the F-18. Look, I just think they're just fantastic airplanes. The look, the feel, the sound, the size, just everything about them is just magic, and it's just the good old days, as they say. I think a lot of that magic's lost, but I'd love to go to Wanaka or, over in New Zealand or something, just see all of them. I've been to Oshkosh once, and, that's just something, that was in 91. Just after the Desert War, I saw the F-117 for the first time. Wow. But, there's B-17s, B-24s, there's a row of Mustangs and Spitfires and Kitty Hawks and everything, it's an amazing, amazing thing. So, we don't really have anything like that up in Darwin. There was a Corsair here once, but everything's pretty much down south these days, but that would be my choice.
Corsair, that's a beautiful aeroplane, and it's so distinct with its wing.
The gull wing there.
Gull wing and just a massive radial.
Yeah.
Yeah, very cool. Very cool aeroplane to choose. My next question, we could probably spend 3 hours talking about. What advice would you give someone who's just starting out in aviation? But I kind of want to put a spin on that and let's say, what advice would you give someone who's contemplating a job in the top end in aviation, and what resources or support systems would you recommend? Obviously, one of those would be Trent Robinson Aviation.
Yeah, me and the podcast. No, look, 100% the podcast. It's there as I mean, there's nothing worse than I get someone come up here and they've just spent money on something or made mistakes and they go, oh God, if only you'd listen to the podcast. So 100% that's what it's for. So I just encourage everyone to share it with everybody because it is a wealth of knowledge, and that's not my opinion. That's everyone listening to it. I get amazing feedback every week, every day from all levels, from Qantas pilots to military pilots to GA and beginners. So I know what I'm putting out there is good and accurate and useful. But if you're coming up here, it's literally in the episodes that you need to have some money behind you, because if you expect to come up to Darwin and just get a job straight up, even though people go, oh, there's so many jobs in Darwin, not necessarily when you show up. Right? You've got to be able to support yourself. Don't expect to leave flight school and then come up here, and then when you get the nod to be able to just perform the way you left, you're going to have to spend some money on flying. It's not me trying to get money out of you or any other operator. It's just a necessary thing. You have to do it. Because if you don't perform in that check flight, they don't need you to be perfect, but if they're looking at you and going like, there's a lot of work to be done here, that's a cost, that's an expense to the company. And if someone else is less costly, they're going to get the job over you.
Yeah.
And remember the process of, your resume. Don't lie, don't overinflate it. At the end of the day, you're a commercial graduate like everyone else applying. There's not a whole lot you can do to separate yourself from the pack. But if you can get other experience, other skill sets, work in other industries or whatever else, that especially in the customer relations area, like, sometimes the pilots up here just got no idea how to interact with customers and passengers. Just that comfort level of being able to deal with those sort of things. That all helps as far as, making yourself employable and useful.
That's fantastic advice. One of the takeaways that I've picked up from the last few chats I've had, one episode which hasn't been released yet, so I won't go into its detail, but certainly my chat with Alex Penrose, is that whole customer aspect, especially in that tourism space. So one-on-one with people, having those people skills, having happy customers when they get off the plane, those interpersonal communication skills would be imperative for a young pilot.
It is. Just have initiative. Like, if the bin's overflowing, don't say that's not my job. Just go and empty it. Yeah. Wash planes. There's pilots up here that think they don't have to wash airplanes. They go, well, Uber drivers and taxi drivers have got to wash their airplanes. They've got to wash their cars. Otherwise people won't want to ride in them. And so, what you do, it impacts on the whole company. As a whole. You could lose contracts because of how you're conducting yourself and that. So it is your job. And looking after the building and your passengers and stocking the fridge and all the things that need to be done is there. I never have and I never will, support working for free. I'm very much against all that whole process. If it's under your plans to do that and get some experience, sure, that's fine. But when your role of working for free is basically forming part of the business model, how that company's structured and working, then I don't think you should be doing that. But anything that you can do to help support the operation and make it about the operation and not make it about you. What can you do for the company? What helps the company? It might in turn help you, but make it about the company, not yourself, and that will impress far more. Yeah,
100%. I love that advice. And once again, we've talked about it a number of times. You mentioned it just before. Flight Training Australia podcast is, to me, invaluable. Even if you're not going to fly in the top end, still invaluable for the information that you can glean from that, from Trent's words, and your guests.
It is. It's for everyone. It's not just about flying in the top end. That features in it a bit, but there's basic training stuff. There's stories, interviews with people from all aspects, and I've got some more lined up. It all helps with the overall. There's something for everybody. It's got to appeal to the wider audience. Otherwise, I'll pigeonhole myself a bit. But I'm just trying to appeal to everybody. And I always encourage people, if there's a topic or something that you want to talk about or know about more, or you want me to clarify for you because you're having an argument in the pilot room, then hit me a message up and I'll do it. And I respond to everything. Everyone always like, I can't believe you called me or you responded, but that's what I'm here for.
I saw you do that on a Facebook group in the last week. There was a bit of a to and fro and you stepped in and told it how it was. And I was like, oh, nice. Like that, just silence that.
Yeah, well, it just often the answers are right there in black and white, but
it's that interpretation.
Knowing where to go to find it. And I look at sometimes now we've got exemptions and all these other bits and pieces, and you call up CASA and even they get confused sometimes, but the truth is out there.
So where can people find you? Obviously in their favourite podcasting platform, they'd enter Flight Training Australia and they'd be able to find you. Where else can they find you on the web?
Yeah, so flighttrainingaustralia.com.au, it's got all the links to all the podcast players, but pretty much, Apple, Spotify, all that, you can get me.
Yep.
Otherwise, you can search for Trent Robinson Aviation on Instagram and Facebook. I put out all sorts of informative things on there as well, or just my name on LinkedIn. And, you can follow me there. All sorts of things, just what's going on in my day or topics that come up or videos and that sort of stuff. And like I said, YouTube is Flight Training Australia as well. That's really why I got the podcast going, because it's so much quicker than doing YouTube videos.
Yeah. The editing's like 10 to 1. So that brings us to the end of another, and honestly, riveting episode of the HiflyMedia podcast. Heartfelt thank you to Trent Robinson for sharing his wealth of experience, his insights and passion for aviation with us today, and it's been very, very evident. If you're as inspired as I am, be sure to check out Trent's podcast, Flight Training Australia. We've mentioned that a few times. and also the YouTube channel and his presence in the social media platforms, where he continues to dive deep into the world of flight and shares his wealth of knowledge and experience with us all. Until next time, Trent, blue skies and tailwinds, and most of all, happy and safe flying, which I know you do so well.
Thank you for your time, and thanks for interviewing me. It's been a great chat.
Join us next time for more fascinating discussions. Subscribe now on your favourite podcast platform, and if you'd like to help out, feel free to leave a review. That'll help spread the word. Alternatively, you can listen to the podcast on the HiflyMedia YouTube channel. Music for the podcast is titled Dance With Me by Asher Lee, available at upbeat.io. The HiflyMedia podcast, uncovering the people and passion behind aviation, one story at a time.